This is Kira Delaney of Kira K Designs. I'm going to show you some tips for crocheting my Bayshore bandana cowl. This is a hybrid crochet project, which means I've got a long hook. It's also called Tunisian Crochet. And I have two different stitch patterns here. There's a little bit of a selvage stitch of what's called the Tunisian knit stitch. It looks a lot like knitting at the top. And then this really lovely squishy lace pattern. I'll also be doing some increases and crab stitch for the edging. I have two different yarns here. One of them is Seismic Yarns Ultra DK, and the other is Barocco Vintage DK. And it's kind of a fun one to mix different yarns. You just want a good amount of contrast, especially in the value. So I've got this dark brown. I'm going to start with a slip knot and do my foundation row. There are different numbers of stitches based on the different size that you're doing. I'm just going to do 6 right now to show you the basics. So this is 6 nice loose chains. And then for the foundation row, I'm going to work in the bumps on the back of the chain here. I'm going to skip the first one, go into the second one, insert my hook and drop a loop. And then the next one and the next one till I get to the end, resulting in 6 loops on my hook. Not a bad idea just to count and make sure things are working. I've got my 6 here. That is the forward pass of the foundation row. And for the return pass, this is going to be the same throughout the project. I'm going to yarn over and draw through 1 loop one time, and then yarn over and draw through 2 loops repeatedly. So yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2 until I can't do it anymore because I only have 1 loop on my hook. Now, I need to change this a little bit. I'm going to undo that very last yarn over and draw through 2. And instead I'm going to change my color. So I'm going to take my cream color here and hold the tail in my right hand alongside my hook, and then yarn over and draw through those 2 loops. So I end up with the brown as my row, but a cream loop on my hook to get started. Now we're going to do the Bayshore stitch with the knit stitch selvage. And I'm going to start by inserting my hook as for a Tunisian knit stitch, which means that I'm going into the loop here. And I usually just push the tails out of my way towards my right. I'm right-handed, so that's my dominant side. And then yarn over and drop a loop. And then I have a second Tunisian knit. That is a selvage, that's going to be the top edge of my cowl. And then we go into our pattern, and our pattern here is going to be a Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, which means I insert my hook sideways into the next 2 vertical bars, yarn over and drop just 1 loop. So it's technically a decrease. To balance it out with an increase, I'm going to do a yarn over, wrap over my hook, and then I'm already ready for the last stitch of the row. And at this last one, I like to go underneath 2 strands of the stitch and yarn over and drop a loop. Not a bad idea here to check that you have your 6 loops on your hook, which I do. Return pass is the same. Yarn over and draw through 1 loop, then yarn over and draw through 2 loops repeatedly. Through 2, through 2, through 2, till you're done. Before I do the very last one, I'm going to switch to my original color of my yarn and yarn over and draw through 2 loops of that. And again, I just kind of pull the unused color off to the side. Now I'm ready for my next row. My next row starts similarly. I'm going to skip the first stitch as usual because I already have a loop there. I'm going to do a Tunisian knit stitch into each of the next 2. And then here I'm going to do a make 1 increase, which means I'm not going to work into this bar at all. I'm going to find the bump at the top, insert my hook in there, it's a little tight, and yarn over and drop a loop there. Then I'm going to do a full stitch, which means I'm going to go into this nice square hole near the end and draw up a loop there. And now I'm ready for my final stitch of the row. Again, I like to go under 2 strands at the edge. Some people do just 1, so you can always experiment and see what you think. I have 6 loops, which is a great sign, and the return pass is going to be the same. Through 1 and then through 2 repeatedly. Now, in some parts of the pattern, which varies depending on the size, you'll have increased rows, and I'm going to show that right now. First, when I have 2 loops remaining, I'm going to switch to my other color and yarn over and draw through 2 loops. All right, so here's an increased row. There's a 2-row pattern for the increased row because it matches up with the 2-row pattern we're doing already. First, we start with 2 Tunisian knit stitches, And then we're going to do a yarn over first, then our TSS 2 together, which is a Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, and then another yarn over before we do our final stitch at the edge underneath those 2 strands. And now you'll see I have 7 stitches. So I've done 1 increased stitch. Return pass is the same as it has been. Oops. I forget this a lot. At the end, you probably will too. If you end up with just 1 loop on your hook and you haven't changed colors, just take that loop off, gently pull, catch the 2 loops that are there, and then switch colors. I find I forget a lot when I'm starting, and then after a few rows, I start remembering. I'm also a little more distracted now because I have to talk to you as well as crocheting. So the next increased row, we're going to start as usual with our 2 knit stitches. And then we're going to do a full stitch in this hole, and then a make 1 increase at the top, and then a full stitch in this hole, and a make 1 increase, and then finally the last stitch underneath those 2 strands as usual. And now we've increased again and we are up to 8 stitches. The return pass is the same as it has been. This is part of a make-along as well with the Bay Area Yarn Crawl. So depending on when you're seeing this, you might be able to join in a community of people all making this together. I'm going to do 1 more row here, and I'm just going to go back to my plain forward pass of row 1. So this is the knit stitch, the knit stitch, Tunisian crochet 2 together, yarn over, Tunisian crochet 2 together, yarn over, and then the final stitch of the row. I've still got my 8 loops on the hook. I'm going to do my return pass, and then I'm going to show you how to finish the project. When I'm down to 2 loops, I'm going to change color. Now when you're doing the project, you're going to end with a row 1 return pass like this, and then you're going to work 2 rows with your main color, which for me is my dark brown here, to finish up the project. You could cut the contrast color at this point, but I don't have scissors next to me, so I'm not going to do it. So first up, we're doing single crochet across the row. So we start with a single crochet, inserting the hook as if it's a Tunisian knit stitch. And I'll do that again. So insert as if I'm doing a knit stitch, yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over and draw through both loops. So I'm kind of closing off the top here. Next up, we're going to do this one as if it is a full stitch, and then a knit stitch, and we'll keep doing this across the row. Insert as if a full stitch, do your single crochet, insert as if you're doing a knit stitch and do your single crochet. Now if at some point you realize that you've got 3 loops on your hook, that just means that you've defaulted to what you've been doing for the whole project and you want to back it up till you have 1 loop and start from there. Here's 1 more full stitch, single crochet, and then the last stitch at the end. Now this could be the finish of a project. You could tie it off right here because it's all closed off, but I decided to do a crab stitch edging, which is kind of a fun textured edge. I'm going to start with a chain stitch. Then I'm going to do a single crochet in this first stitch of the row, and it feels funny because it's almost like I'm moving backwards. You get used to it, but it is a little awkward. And then yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over and draw through both for a single crochet. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch back. So insert your hook, yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over, draw through both loops. And I'm going to keep doing this. This makes kind of a twisted cord looking edge, which is really kind of lovely. It will feel awkward for the first 5 or 6. Notice when I'm inserting my hook, I kind of hold the working loop back a little bit because I don't want it to fall off. And since I'm pulling backwards, it helps to hold it in place. I'm going to guess you won't love this till you're about 10 stitches in. And then if you're still grumpy at it, take a look at what you get. I think it's definitely worth the extra effort because it gives you a really pretty edge. It also pulls the edge of this cowl into a really nice curve, which I quite like in terms of how it hangs. So there I'm at the end of my crab stitch edge. I would cut the yarn and tie it off, and then there's going to be a little bit of seaming where you seam your starting edge to the last few rows. I can't do that here because it is such a small little sample, but I can show you on my finished cowl. So here, this is my foundation chain here. Get that on frame. This is my foundation chain. I kept going here, increasing, increasing, increasing. Eventually I did that single crochet and then crab stitch back edge, and then this is my little tiny seam. With some of the sizes there's a bigger seam, but this is again the foundation chain is sewed to this side of the last few rows of the piece. And then you end up with this lovely squishy cowl. It's a great way to use up odds and ends of yarns or mix and match. It kind of switches the main color and the contrast color on various pieces, and a really nice quick gift. So I hope you enjoyed making it and you found the video helpful.